In a world designed for instant gratification, what if technology could help us slow down, help us become more intentional, more conscious, more human? Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies that help us live longer, healthier, and more purposeful lives. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, an exercise physiologist with a passion for making science simple and life better as we age, with my co-host, Corbin Bruton. Our guest, Arthur Corvin Powells, isn't just thinking about the future of tech, he's building it. From his time in basement mode to his launch of Anti-Gray, Arthur's work flips the script on modern technology. He's here to talk about how AI, intention, and balance can change not just how we age, but how we live. This is a conversation about reclaiming our humanity, one thoughtful choice at a time. Let's talk about aging well. Arthur, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. Let's just begin by having you tell us a little bit about your backstory. Tell us about yourself and how you managed to go from hair to AI and aging well.
And vice versa. I'm a proud triple college dropout. So I was doing philosophy and astrophysics and IT, and I was really I think I spent about 200% of my teenage years coding and the engineering, and then I just found out that there's things like breakdancing and hip hop and boxing, and I took a bit of a break. And when I actually went back to university, I realized that something I want to do is to build, and that's what I did. I kind of had a choice to go to a bank, to a hedge fund, and then to the bank again, and I decided that's not for me. So I spent my 20s trying to figure out the way things work, working full-time, studying full-time, and obviously, I got back to my roots, which is engineering and first principles thinking, really. What is the world made of, and what can help me understand that, and what kind of business can you do with that? Because, we live in a capitalist society, so you want to make sure that the effort is saved in a database, i.e. money. And if you want to know about health, well, I've just always been sort of, when you work 80-hour weeks and you barely sleep, one thing you notice is that you want to maximize everything about yourself. So body, mind, and so on. And like I said, I did a lot of sports, but I never wanted to, when you go almost pro, you have a lot of folks around you who are like, there are these things you can take, performance enhancers and whatnot. They can really help, but that was never for me because I never liked the risks. So I got into working with some labs really in my, I guess, mid to late 20s. I'm 37 now. And for the last, 10 years, I was touching base with as many researchers and scientists as I could. And by about, I think, 6 years ago, it was clear that if you really want to go through, and there's about 70 billion-ish different nutrients, really, if you really want to go through all of them, no human can do it. So this is where AI really comes in. AI researchers, and lately, for the last year and a half, it's all about agents doing all of the work in the background and understanding what works. And now we're training our own system. So that's really exciting. We actually have a supercomputer center outside of Chicago that I just met with the representatives of, I guess, a month or two ago. Time flies. So they're building up, and they're very kind to give us their space. So that's the next step. We just launched Hair Labs, the first ever nutraceutical that prevents hair graying based on the latest research just shown in February, and we put it all together. And the next step are our larger, we call them vital labs for now. We consolidate all different labs to try to use nature and AI to come up with real age reversal. It's certainly possible. Nature does it in different animals. It's just with humans, we have a lot of those senescent cells. I think for evolution, it's just easier for us all to die. And I say I'm not sure about that.
Well,
so that's my short story.
Yeah, let's talk about those AI solutions. So we've heard you say that anti-gray is more than about hair health. It's about an effort and intention. Do you think you could unpack that for us?
Well, look, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but if I'm being blunt, like really truthful, most so-called nutraceuticals or supplements, if you want to know, like I said, I've been studying this a lot, is just marketing. So it's the same old multivitamins repackaged and, better packaging, better presentation, better models. But I don't think they really do things. We have this motto in my companies, and like I said, this is actually one of my first appearances because we've sort of been in investment mode for about 10 years, over 10 years. We really wanted to know our stuff before we merge. And our motto is very simple. It's esse quam videre, which is Latin, and it means to be rather than to seem. So you really need to find the right people to put in the right effort and to really suss out the solution. I guess what I'm saying is, in business, in capitalism, there's always low-hanging fruit. And this is, by the way, very, very much to do with how AI works as well. You can always find a way to optimize for the instantly gratifying solution. In business, it's the same. You can always find an easy solution, and you can compete, head to head, neck to neck, and you both die. I think it's worth putting in the effort to look for the delayed gratification, to look for things that really work. While I was dropping out of college 3 times, I really got into the study of thermodynamics and going back really to the basics of, why is time sort of asymmetric, even though the laws of physics make it symmetric? How is it different from, the spatial dimensions? And the answer is thermodynamics. There is a dynamic, there is a directed dynamic of the universe. And if you unpack that into how things work, basically you put in the right effort for the right cause instead of fighting for the instant solutions, and you get innovation. So there's a lot of mathematics behind it as well. I don't know if you guys are into this stuff, but there's a very nice scientist, Stephen Wolfram, and he has this concept of computational irreducibility. So of all the possible systems and rules, you have to find the one that leads to innovation. And to do that, you basically have to go through as many of the ones that fail as possible. And that's the nature of effort. And large companies, what they do is they just find one rule that brings in some money, and they continue iterating until they collapse. Very similar to what AI does in the space of solutions. It's an algorithm called the gradient descent. It finds a local optimum, and it keeps digging and digging and digging, and then it just fizzles out. So it's very hard. Basically, what I'm saying is the universe is made of the same thing. And what you do in business, what you do in AI, what you do anywhere really has to do with the crazy effort for a crazy cause that might just work, but probably won't.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk some tech. Most tech rewards speed and scrolling. Why did you choose to design tech that tends to slow people down?
Yeah, I mean, my entire let's not call it age reversal. Let's just call it humanity extension. Is just a side hustle. So it's something which is very important to me. I really want to stay young. I want my team to be as healthy as possible. But this is just a question of the body, and I think the most important question today is the question of the mind. I think the statistics are here in the West, actually more so in the US. 35-ish% of people are clinically depressed. It's much higher with women and young kids. And I don't know, like, shouldn't we kind of be a bit concerned about the fact that, 4 out of 10 are literally just depressed, and we live in this society? And shouldn't we really get down to the basics of why it happens? And there you go. It's again the integration. If you start really from first principles and you understand what it means to create knowledge, to create systems or patterns that persevere, perseverance itself is a function of time. So what you need to do is you need to incentivize people to pursue a goal which is a bit further away, and this gives them a way to test if what they're building is actually going to persevere. I mean, I actually call this concept beauty, something that resonates through time and space, something that connects people together, and so on and so forth. And what we have instead is technology such as X, Twitter, and others, which are those low-hanging fruit. And they are my main kind of enemy, not just aging. Aging is, like I said, something that keeps the body healthy while we fight this, which is just a giant lizard brain. Just as evolution created animals first before the beings, we online have created sort of an animalizing AI right now. And I always find it funny that right now everybody's so they're afraid of AI taking jobs or something like this. Whereas I look at it very differently. I look at AI right now optimizing away humanity that was possible in smaller societies, but is kind of impossible today. So with a very high bandwidth, which we have with with 5G, obviously Wi-Fi, soon with 6G, information exchange between minds will soon reach the level of information exchange between unscaled neurons. Like imagine we're all connected the same way as your thoughts are connected in your head, right? So what the real trouble is today we're kind of creating the superorganism, and we're creating it based on our lizard brains, based on fears and based on grouping ourselves by genetic strategies by those like us, and fighting against online at least those who are unlike us. So all of this to me is like literally as big a challenge as when Homo sapiens was just emerging from life. Is there going to be civilization with these new beings, or are they going to stay smart but uncivilized? One may argue like dolphins or other large-brained creatures that could form societies but don't. And that's where I think AI is taking us. I think it's kind of optimizing away the layer that was built for smaller societies. And we throw AI as this tertiary cognitive layer on top of our mind. It crushes the prefrontal cortex and attaches to the lizard brain. And that's what we're really fighting. And yeah, we are building some, I think, maybe a bit too crazy social media tech, but everybody tells me I'm too optimistic. But we spent the last 6 years, really, the last 6 years, very much working on this technology. And when ChatGPT and so on arrived in the scene, that accelerated the whole thing. So we will be coming out with some products as soon as I'd say late August for some social media that incentivizes you sharing your real content and connected to a giant ecosystem of what I call post AI professions. So we will have social media for mostly education and hospitality and disrupting charity as we know it by connecting people peer to peer. So it's a very ambitious project, and I wasn't sure I should actually tell you about this. I'm here to talk about hair. I'm just joking, whatever you guys want to know. It's been a wild ride, really, over the last six years. So I'm very excited to share some parts of it. We've been working through. We hired and fired about 20,000 people trying to find the best, and we run something called Project Ukraine. Also, even before the war over there, we were looking for folks in parts of the world to try to bring on. And yeah, I think soon we will see, universe willing, good results.
No, I love your passion, right? It's yeah, you're really passionate about this. So let's keep playing off of it a little bit. You had mentioned that longevity isn't about living longer, it's about living better. So how do you see technology supporting that kind of a shift?
Yeah, it's life isn't about life extension. Life is about health extension. You really want to make sure you're the healthiest. But once again, to bring it back, imagine yourself being very healthy, and we have a lot of those people in the world, and depressed at the same time. So to me, it's not just health extension per se. Dare I say it, happiness extension, once again, So we are building the actual solutions. We have Vita Labs, we have Hair Labs. We started with anti-gray. We have something right now in development called anti-apathy 1.0, which is very funny. And we're running all of these agents to try to understand what kind of nutrients can actually naturally motivate you to be more sort of like life-loving without going into drugs and all the rest of it. But yeah, what we used to have, as humanity when we were forming, I don't know if you guys know this concept called Dunbar's number, but basically all of us can naturally connect to about 150 or 200 other humans. Like every animal has a pack, and there's enough knowledge inside our genes to be able to connect to a certain number. So at that point, we are kind of at our base standard happiness level, and anything beyond that, in humanity's case, required more than just genetic knowledge. It required cultural knowledge, like what Richard Dawkins called memes 40 years ago. Now, of course, memes are finding something online, but you need to create those things that bring us together, right? But also with that, the larger the society becomes, the harder it is to constantly create new and new memes, new culture. And that culture, by the way, has to reflect more and more truth. Hence, I'm very much not anti-religious because, implicitly there is a lot of truth in bringing people together. However, you really can. But today, I think that mechanism once again is breaking. So for me, longevity would be how long can you find meaning, to really kind of have this. I personally have a lot of drive and I feel motivated doing what I do. I think there is a solution to integrating tech in our lives. But I don't think everybody should be a crazy entrepreneur. I work, 14-hour days. I haven't had a break since February 22nd, 2022. So that's not for everybody. There has to be meaning to their lives. And, we have to constantly create new things, art, new sports, new whatever, based on stable societies. For that, we need good social media, actually social media. That's why we're working on all of these media projects to bring mental health to people. Good physical health. That's why we're working on Hair Labs, Vita Labs, and all the rest of them. And then, where does meaning come from? How do we build those communities? And we have two projects towards that. And like I said, they are sort of, they will collect the data from our social media to suggest people meeting offline and then kind of friending and dating at the same time based on really their achievements in life. So we're working full steam ahead. We're really trying, but this is just the beginning. And we'll take, obviously, people much smarter than me to bring it all together, preferably somebody who hasn't dropped out thrice from college.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast. So it sounds like you're trying to put the social back in social media. What does aging well mean to you personally, and how has your thinking on it evolved since your kind of basement mode years?
And the reason I went into the basement is that I actually thought I had life figured out. I was sort of helping organize some hedge funds and doing a lot of reading, and I wanted to become a writer. Just to sit down. I think I must have read every single main, 500 good books in my 20s, and I thought, okay, this is it. I know what everything is made of, and then it kind of all came crashing down when I noticed that all of the things that I sort of found weird in others are just here within me. All of those properties which are in the end destructive. So in order to really figure it out, I realized that I needed to bring a lot of different people together and build some very different things. Now, as far as aging goes, there is something called the default. Well, let me take a step back, actually. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I sort of identify four different slices of our process. You see, so a human being, like any knowledge creating system, has very roughly four slices. I call them four steps in the spiral, so we go in a circle, then you create something new, that hence the spiral. And this is the work of McGilchrist, of course, and others. And we have the four stages. The first one would be sort of like a startup. You're a baby, you're just iterating, you're playing, you're learning how to learn. Then you find something, then you're a teenager, you're trying to crystallize it and scale, and hopefully it works. Then you become stable, and you are a being, and you are kind of this resonant dynamic, and then you want to unite with another being to create something truly innovative. And you see this in business and in animals and in other art forms everywhere. First you're a startup, then you're a scale up, then you're a business, then you're a platform. You're a little you're an egg. You move on to being a butterfly, and then creating and so on. So at each of these four stages, I think we are quite different. And in humans, we don't quite see a cocoon becoming a butterfly. The stage separation is much clearer in different systems. But in us, we have something called the default mode network, where this is a very malleable part of the mind, which matures by about 25. And this is where the stage of becoming stops. And by this time, this is quite important that you are already not ossified. So if you want to age better after 25, it's very important to have good education before 25. It's very hard to get it after. And this is why I was just randomly lucky that I sort of dropped out and found some mentors and became as dynamic as I could before 25. So what I'm saying is I really separate kind of aging is what you do to age well, and then actually what you do when you do age well. When you do age well, you need those nutrients. When you do age well, you need proper connections with community, proper projects, and so on. But it's also very, very important to really be blunt about this. If you are not educated to be dynamic, then aging well is already a much, much tougher concept. So that's why we're building really everything we can, from nutrients for actual aging to educational social media. Right now, we're developing something in our company called Education Studios, something that has, we call them Imagimons for little kids, like imaginary monsters. But basically, they are agentic, let's say, virtual tutors that grow together with children, and they are archetypical. So if you read any good story, the Bible, the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, you always have a set of different characters. You usually relate to one of them, but they always work as a group. So this is kind of like how human genetic strategies separate, and then if you bring them together, they are the unification of the third stage of the spiral to get to the innovative stage to create something novel. So we are mimicking this and creating this interactive world where you can discover these tutors. They all fall into these archetypes, and together they live sort of with you. They always motivate you to explore the offline, not just the online. They post on the social media, and they ensure, hopefully, your education up until about this time. They are there to learn about you, to help you learn, and then to keep you as dynamic as possible until 25. So it's a very difficult concept indeed. I think I want to apologize if there's any sophistry in what I'm saying. I've just been thinking a lot about this, and it probably doesn't quite make too much sense. But what I'm saying is there's really a lot of things to solve if we look reality in the face, and we're like, everybody's depressed. Humans kind of don't like each other for some reason that much anymore. Like, what are the major solutions? And I have to, gosh darn, figure it out. So that's the plan, and only then we can talk about really what age means. Co-living happily together, right? First and foremost. So yeah, something like this.
So if AI is a tool that could help make people better and not just machines smarter, what the heck does that look like in practice?
Yeah, it's just like we can talk about this in the terms of today, but it's like generals always fighting the last war. So First World War, the French show up with their beautiful hats and the muskets and the horses and all the rest of it, and they're just overrun. So I worry that it's kind of like it's one of those unknown unknowns. We can try to model it and we can say, well, like here we have democracy, we have capitalism, and what is that going to look like? But then you ask yourself, so hold on a second, like democracy and capitalism are great systems, but they weren't really possible 2000 years ago, for example, in the Roman Empire. Why? Because the Romans, the way the signal traveled in the Roman Empire was at the speed of a horse. So how would you even vote in the Roman Empire? So like all of these systems are just a function of what we have today. And in a world where everybody, it is coming that we will have Neuralink or something similar in our minds, right? So everything is connected, where we are all both individuals and one big unit. My thing is, once again, this whole unit needs to somehow keep incentivizing delayed gratification, because we know from all of the research and so on that this is the main thing for the development of children. And we are, I think, approaching the same epistemological leap as we did when we went from, monkeys to humans. There was no culture, and then there's culture. Just compare the two differences. Like if we are monkeys hanging out 300,000 years ago, we're like, so what is that prefrontal cortex going to look like, right? Like, is it going to help us eat more bananas or something like that? And they're like, no, there's hip hop and jazz and HD porn flying around, in the ether, basically, all of a sudden. Like if you look at Earth, kind of, it's a very funny thing. So I think it's just an incredible unknown for which to be prepared. We need to be as stable as possible. So what is as stable as possible? So I've been really thinking a lot about this as well. And I tried to, with the team, identify the moments in our history where we had sort of some unity, the peak of the Roman Empire, maybe some aspects of the Victorian Britain, the Belle Epoque in France, maybe, unfortunately, for just a slice of the population, the 50s in America, maybe pre-First World War as well in the UK. I'd say like early 90s after the Cold War was one, right? So you find like, what are the moments when people become stable enough? I think those are the moments of continual optimism and creation of some sort of beauty. You would see it in architecture and music. Basically, the art would be optimistic, right? Like the news wouldn't sound like it's doom and gloom all the time. So there should be something. You should switch on the TV and you should kind of feel the good vibes. You should talk to people and not worry that they look for a catch. Like basically something needs to look like a Frank Capra movie. So how do we get to that? That's my thing. Like, how do we bring people together? How do we motivate them online to be at their best? Not to just, what's the word? If you go on X right now, it's not even that the people are trying to get attention. They're trying to get you to well, I want to say bring you down, but they kind of want you to feel as bad as they do, sort of. They're like, I'm upset, you must be upset. And that's a very bad thing to promulgate. And if you go right now to most art galleries, what you see aren't solutions anymore, for which I think art was really the whole point. I think you see problems. I think people use art to show, well, I'm sad. Here's my sadness in art form. Whereas before they were like, hey, people are sad, but here I'm converting it into this solution. So I think we need to build technology, because it's always technology. Remember with Martin Luther, technology was printing. The books and everything led to really questioning the Catholic Church. So it's always technology. It always leads to first this moment of potential destruction. Entropy goes up, the second law of thermodynamics, and then we have to lower it and create knowledge along the way. And for this, we need the healthiest society, the most united society, even though, of course, with different opinions, but united with an overarching idea. Like everybody was always of different ideas. Christianity united them, then some optimism, scientific optimism really united people in the early 20th century. Have you guys seen the speech by Charlie Chaplin when he was kind of playing Hitler, basically, in this movie, I think, The Great Dictator? So he just gives a speech 100 years ago or whatever, which is impossible to picture today. Or, as Peter Thiel always says, like, whom are we actually going to give a ticker tape parade in New York without upsetting anybody. Like, who is it? Can we identify one person today? Right. So I think to solve all of these things isn't to envisage the future, but to stabilize dynamically the present as much as we can, so that future can fall on top and stay there without crushing everything. Because that happened before. The Romans destroyed themselves through whatever reasons, but they got so close to the Industrial Revolution. And we only got back to that level of development after about 1,500 years after their collapse, really. So that can certainly happen now. We have this AI revolution coming. It falls on top of us. It can crash us. And then we wait 1,500 years. We get a better society. Like, you can say the Renaissance Europe was a better society in certain ways. And then it works. I don't know about you guys. I'm trying to live longer, but I don't want to live 1,500 years to get to that point, with good hair or without it.
Well, I'm past living with hair, period. So
that's why I wear a
I
hat.
can bring it back.
yeah.
No, guys, no. You know that there are actual chemical solutions for it, but they burn your body. So, but the truth is, like, nature gives us so much. All of the antibiotics are just fungi grown underground, right? So nature has evolved over 4.5 billion years to provide pretty much everything. We're just so bad at finding it. That's what AI does. That's what we did with anti-gray. We just went through all of the possible nutrients. We went through all of the possible pathways in graying, and we just saw which nutrients mixed with which stop each pathway. And when luteolin was shown to do this one thing with stem cells in February, it reconnects two types of stem cells. All we needed to ensure was that we already have the entire pathway network for the human follicular system to ensure that those stem cells work. So basically, you can do the same for shedding, because there is in you already something that will grow the hair out, and we will be working on this. Like I said, we have this supercomputer that we are going to set up quite soon, and I'd say let's take a rain check. Give me about a year, and if you choose to, no hats. But actually, it looks good on you guys. I don't know if this actor Jason Statham plays a tough guy in British movies. I don't want to see that guy with hair. Like, he looks like he needs to look. So. It's not for everybody. I'm keeping mine for now, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, you got great hair. And I personally, I've been without hair for a while, and I kind of like getting up in the morning, not having to shampoo my hair, use conditioner and brush it and do all that kind of stuff. I don't have to worry about going out in the wind. So it works for me. And I do love kind of the enthusiasm and the optimism in all that you're doing. I'm kind of the same way, where I look at the friction in our world, but I also look at the friction that precedes any kind of big boost in evolution or any change in society. I have to have that friction to drive it. And I can see your optimism in that, and I'm equally as optimistic. But do you see AI as a tool that can help unlock more human creativity? Because often, we fear that people are getting less creative because of AI. Or are we at risk of letting it do the creative work for us to a point where we're no longer engaging in that part of ourselves? We're no longer creative.
Yeah, I do think a lot about this. But I think I have a slightly different view, and I haven't quite discussed it with many people yet, but I'll try to share it with you guys. And by the way, sorry if it's a little loud here. I'm just constantly between meetings, but I really wanted to make sure that we connect today. Well, look, I think what the mistake is now here. I'm maybe a bit beyond all of the paychecks I've seen, but look, one of the things that blew my mind as a very small kid, and the reason I got into engineering and coding, I was sitting there. I remember I was looking at a pint of milk or whatever I had on the table. I think it was a liter. I was in Europe. And I realized, I was reading a lot of Einstein at the time, and, just primitive stuff as kids do. But, E equals MC squared, right? So you go like, the mass of this is whatever kilo it was. C squared is like this giant number. And I'm like, hold on. So inside this milk, there's energy of this number. I spent the next year studying nuclear physics, and one of my first actually engineering projects was to simulate nuclear explosions. I mean, it's quite terrible to say, but basically I tried to simulate what would happen if the entire energy of that milk carton is released over London. And it was pretty devastating. It's crazy, right? So I realized there's all this energy trapped everywhere. I mean, everybody knows it, but to me, it's still kind of mind-blowing. Like, we are all just energy which is crushed together and held in place. So we discovered this energy 100 years ago with Einstein, and the rest of them, and of course Oppenheimer. I could never finish the movie, by the way. It was kind of very, very boring. 3 hours up. But anyway, so then he helped unleash it, and here we go. So we found the fact that everything is kind of made of energy. And I don't know if it's interesting to you guys, but what's also mind-blowing is that if you put all the energy of the universe together, it actually cancels out, because the positive and the negative energy of the universe are sort of equal by the latest measurement. So we also came from zero, which is a bit weird. So anyway, so everything is made of energy. What AI to me is right now, using this simple mechanism of the transformer with sufficient number of layers. I was shocked by it because I was studying and all the rest of it. I was shocked that using a transformer, which, as you probably know, gentlemen, nobody really understands how it works. It's called the black box problem. We discovered the fact that also the universe is made out of knowledge. So it's not just that the universe has energy; it also has patterns that beget other patterns. Basically, knowledge leading to knowledge. So you can see the next step based on the previous step. That's what ChatGPT does. It takes a token, gives you the next token, which is then converted into words or a series, and so on and so forth. So the world is ultimately made of energy and knowledge. Knowledge packages and repackages energy as you go forward, and this is again against the second law of thermodynamics. And once again, I'm sorry if I'm being a bit detailed here, but the point is this: we are talking about AI as if it's a thing in a vacuum. I think AI is just a tertiary cortical layer that cannot exist without our lizard brain and the prefrontal cortex. Not in earnest. I think it falls down on us. We don't have requisite cultural stability. I think if it crashes the prefrontal cortex, everything is over. I can see those scenarios. I can see basically AI coming as an optimizer for the lizard brain. It creates more and more divergent social media, ultimately gives us these pleasurable 3D worlds with memory erasure, whatever. All of this is possible with neural links in everybody's minds. And you can see how difficult it is to take a phone away from a baby now. Imagine switching off a thing inside their mind, crazy enough to connect it. But let's say some people would be, and more would be. And then everybody's living in this matrix. But unlike the Matrix, your memory is constantly erased, and you're just happy, and AI keeps optimizing this. Whilst, and I think this will be very important, if your lizard brain is still alive, this is where the drive comes from, because we are all as animals competitive. I don't think AI has a competitive thing ingrained into it. In fact, I don't think it's possible without 4 billion years of evolution to create all of the knowledge which all of life already has. The philosophers call will to power or whatever. So this thing I don't see being simulated in AI, and I don't care what they say. I've spoken and I've checked. Everybody, we really don't have an understanding of the nature of effort. This is what the first layer gives us. This is what the animal brain gives us. So it's possible for AI to sit on top of this with us sort of being the driving force for it to continue optimizing everything, but there is total emptiness and we're just living in a 3D world. Imagine again, pure sexual pleasure, pure everything else that we need. Video games. I'll tell you something I'm doing on the side. It's a company, it's a project called Circle.help. Like I said, I think that's also very important to build, where we connect people in need to people who can help them. And I just see a lot of folks who are not very happy with life at all. Again, 40% depressed, but more just very spiritual lost. And some of them are just saying, look, dude, all I want is just for AI to come and take me away to this virtual world. And I cannot really oblige that. I think if we keep our prefrontal cortex and the sense of beauty, we can exist both in the offline and the online, and also be not just a driving force for AI to optimize for anything, but also would be a driving force through the prefrontal cortex for AI to create beauty. And I don't think AI can do it without us. I think we are the effort providers at the lizard brain and the beauty providers at the human brain, the prefrontal cortex. So we need to be, that's why I call it humanity extension. We need to be as human as possible. And I think creativity ipso facto is not possible without both of these. Without being, again, too pretentious, according to Wolfram, and mathematically it's true, you can have millions of different ways of progressing from one state of time to another, but only very rare rules lead to innovation. So you can see it anywhere in something called the cellular automata, simple systems, anywhere. From one step to another, it's very hard to identify what's going to create innovation. And it's not just to do with chaos theory or quantum mechanics. It's an intrinsic property of the universe. You have to find those rules that scale to something meaningful. And humans, only us, can identify what meaning is, because we are a combination of both animal and that prefrontal cortex that justifies all the things we do, but in a beautiful way, in a way. So AI cannot have that. It can only coexist. It can only extend us or overpower the prefrontal cortex and optimize us away. So I know this is a very long-winded way of saying sort of that AI without us, actually Einstein had this thing, I think I'm going to mangle it, but he said something like this: religion without science is I don't remember what it was, like moot and science without religion is lame, meaning, lame in an old sense way, like lame duck, so disabled. So I think it's the same with AI and us. We just have to integrate in a way that makes sense to the laws of the universe, if you will. So I see more creativity. I see beauty which we cannot even envisage. The next layer, like you can picture jazz in the 16th century. Can you guys imagine like picturing, and I don't look like it now, but I came from sort of like the street culture, BMXing, breakdancing, and all the rest of it. That's beautiful when you hang out as a kid, but you cannot explain that to Shakespeare, right? Like he would be shocked. So that's what the future is. We will find what the next street culture of AI is, or we will just perish into the virtual reality of useless pleasure.
So I guess what does that look like? What role do you think AI might play in enhancing self-awareness, focus, and even spiritual consciousness?
Yeah, I think I have an answer to this. So very simple. I mean, where do we begin? A very simple thing. Like, why is gold more expensive than silver? It's more, it's more rare. Diamonds are rarer yet, and until we start mining asteroids. So that's the whole concept of Bitcoin, right? It ensures mathematical uniqueness, right? So Bitcoin cannot be fungible, cannot be replicated. So that's why it stores value. Basically, humans, or let's start with humans, we cling on to anything unique to store value. And then if you really look around, and you study infinities, the only thing we know of which is arguably infinite is the combination within our genes, which is wild to say, but really, there used to be giant numbers attached to it at first, but then we realized there's more and more and more to it. And now we're kind of like, we don't even know if there is a limit. So technically, the only thing unique in the universe that we know, which is not fungible, is us. And people say, hey, you go far enough in the universe, the atoms will repeat. There will be somebody just like you. Well, hold on a second. There will be a different time and space coordinates. So even that is still not as identical to you. Basically, what I'm saying is each and every human being is unique. So we start 300,000 years ago. All human beings are ordered into Dunbar-style societies where there's one chief, 150 people around him, basically his friends, vertical hierarchy. Everybody knows their place. And everybody does the same thing, right? Like you forage, you do this, you do that. There's basically, I don't know, however many archetypes, and that's however many things humans can do. We go to today, and the further we go in civilization, the more of these spirals of knowledge are created and the memes are built on top of memes, the more different people can express their uniqueness, no? Like through trials and tribulations of teenage years especially, we have created so many unique things over the last few years. Like, it's unbelievable. So what I think ultimately AI will do if we are successful, which is a very tall order, but basically forget about the simulation hypothesis or not, everybody will be a hero of their own movie. Everybody will be able to take the uniqueness of their position, their genetics, and their, let's say, coincidences of being, and turn that into something unique. Like, extrapolate this to the rest of the world. Everybody will create ultimately, in the limit, genes plus memes plus AI would go from AI all the way down to the genes, take that uniqueness and bring it about, and then create our own little universes. And I think this will happen using virtual technology. Certainly, everybody will have some unique expression of the universe. Now, this is going maybe thousands of years, maybe hundreds. I personally think this will happen around 2050s, but I don't know why I can tell you. But I mean, what I'm saying is really the future is so far beyond what I even read in science fiction. Imagine all of us finding, all of us being the Neo of our own matrix. So kind of something like this in a way.
You're really blowing my mind here. So much to think about and so much to ponder as we're going through this, because I mean, we're so much in line in terms of just kind of the intersection between the spiritual, the physical, and the philosophical, just all kind of coming together here. And I'm trying to really get a head around it. This is probably going to be one of those podcasts that I hope our guests will have to listen to a couple times and really think about it over that period of time and kind of see where it's taken them. Next question I kind of had was, when we look at the internet, that's something that was meant to connect us, and yet we are more divided now than ever. I mean, I've never seen in my 62 years a society more divided than we currently are. What do you think went wrong, and how do we go about course correcting that?
Right. Well, that is what I'm trying to answer with this project that we're running called Ruliad, which brings people together for delayed gratification. I have an answer to this, but I don't think if I completely explicitly explain it, I think it would be too offensive in a way, because we are all implicit beings. We learn through storytelling, and certain things, like certain certainties, are just your own, and you kind of hurt other people who can't agree with this. But in a basic way, the internet is a great idea until the bandwidth becomes large enough for the. Let's put it this way: technology was basically an outcome of the evolutionary mechanism of making things easier for us. It's easier to kill somebody with a stick, with a gun, with a nuke. So we evolve and we create technology as a way to optimize away effort. And in the beginning, it's great because it leads to more art and more effort, but then you optimize the final effort of any activity, right? So what technology to me looks like at the stage of an internet of social media where everybody's connected with pictures and images and so on. Well, look, can I just say something which is outrageous, but a good approximation of it? But we're all guys here. I'm just going to say something which is not true, but let's run a thought experiment. Let's pretend we're all a little younger. We are very stupid 18-year-olds, or let's say 20-year-olds, and we're in Europe, and we all go out for a drink, and we are just we're scoundrels, we are good for nothing, whatever. But we found some good suits, and we want to show off. And there's like a lot of hot girls there. We're whatever your flavor of coffee, but let's say a lot of hot girls, and I got you guys, and we got 5 other guys, and we're like, you guys all have girlfriends. I'm the loser here. I live with my mom in my basement and so on. Guys, can you do me an effort? Just pretend like I'm some big shot in front of these girls. I don't know if this ever happened to you. It happened to some friends of mine, I hear, allegedly. So we go to this club, and they're like, yeah, dude, you're such a big deal. Where's your Ferrari and whatever? And I take this girl home, and one night stand, I don't care, right? Because I'm a kid. So imagine, if you will, that not this, but something similar with an ability for people to implicitly minimize effort would be happening with high enough bandwidth. A lot of people who are kind of lazy would have levers of power very implicitly, not explicitly, but their implicit will would be to optimize away effort for everything, for courtship, for behavior of any sort of a lady or a gentleman towards one another. And we can see it online. Online, people all of a sudden, right now, it's allowed by society, not by an individual, it's bottom up. Society right now allows all sorts of communication online. Now, forget about all of the animalism, right? So I think in a way, this giant hive mind, when it first connects our lizard brains so we can optimize away the effort, basically make, low-hanging fruit is lying, right? Creating things which are untrue. Now, if you put enough effort, eventually the storylines you create are true, but you begin as a teenager or as a kid, you lie your way out of certain things. You fake it till you make it. Right now, online is basically faking it. I honestly think that there's a lot of implicit knowledge creation which comes together to lie your way to optimize certain things. If you go to LinkedIn, social media, anything, people are kind of presenting fakery, things which aren't real. And when you have a lot of untruths put together, this is why, everything is upsetting to everybody. If I have FOMO every time I open my Instagram because everybody's naked and happy, and I'm dressed up and working 14 hours a day, I'm like, hey, my life sucks. But their lives aren't like that. So this is a very simple example. But basically, again, it's a way to incentivize fakery over makery. There is not truth in what's happening online. And when you are fed nonsense all the time, nonsense is not something which agrees with many stomachs. So we have to persevere through this, just like with any technological revolution. If you read Dickens, you're like, whoa, stop industrial revolution. It's terrible. It's true. I don't want to be a chimney sweep, but I'm happy right now that there's a car I can get into, and Uber myself away somewhere nice and cool, right? And, so this is kind of where we are right now. The internet has created a monster, which I think optimizes away, again, truth, because everybody's so interconnected that implicitly we create untruths that make things simpler. I don't remember the name. There was a great writer and economist, a book called Spent, with a T at the end, and I think he was the one really promulgating this notion of evolution optimizing effort away in the end. And this is where we find ourselves in. Right now, a lot of societies are trying to form themselves around the notion that effort bad, nothing good. Gen Z, I'm a millennial, we're crazy. So yeah, we have to persevere through this, push for more beauty, using AI or using the old-fashioned prefrontal cortex. I'd say just ignore it, ignore the noise, look for the signal, using technology, using, again, unities of people, just like we always did. Everything came from pretty much sorrow. Jazz really came as remnants of creating beauty out of first slavery, and then really a lot of unfairness. a lot of Russian culture, or Eastern European culture more broadly came from slavery, servdom as well. I don't know if you know this, but Eastern Europe, Russia had about 5 times as many slaves even as America did in the 19th century, and then all of the beautiful music and everything came. So out of where we are right now, this beautiful next stage can bloom. But what has happened is that we have connected ourselves without creating the requisite culture for it first. It's always happened in history, and we are all chimney sweeps.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that. Okay, so with AI making things so simple, as you put it, like so simple that we're not using our frontal lobe cortex, we're tapping into that more primal lizard brain, right? So we're not necessarily thinking, and then with the age of the internet, everything around us is a lie and everything's so fake. It almost seems that as we optimize AI, we're optimizing it to hurt each other. Do you think that it can be redirected towards compassion or understanding? Because even with your metaphor or your example of through a hard time, beauty can come out of it. Like, do you see that coming with AI, or do you think it's going to be used as a tool to become so simple for like everyone's just so simple that we're not there's no pressure. We're not thinking about anything. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I think it's bifurcation. We can go one way or another. And like I said, if everything was so hunky dory that it always worked out and beauty came out of effort, then we wouldn't have the collapse of the Roman Empire and God knows how many empires before then, starting with
Hmm.
Sumerians, and maybe there are those ancient I don't know about. Who knows? So one or the other. And it's very hard to say what is going to really determine this. I'm very optimistic because, well, that's just a good way to be. If you're pessimistic, that's it. Kind of, you are already undynamic. 50-50, man, honestly, 50-50. You look at the state of the world right now, we could be the Roman Empire, like I said. I do have, thankfully, some understanding of the first principles once again, and if you guys want, I can try to give you a mathematical proof that it's possible without kind of using let's say physical proof. It's quite simple, really. So the second law of thermodynamics is the only thing that makes the world dynamic. You break an egg, very hard to put it together, even though the laws of physics don't say which way the time flies. And again, this is something I've been thinking about as a kid. Why is time symmetric? Well, very simple. At the Big Bang, about 14 billion years ago, and this thing called entropy, or the number of states of the universe, or the chaos, was abnormally low. So for some reason, we don't know why, entropy was very low. So naturally, entropy needs to be much higher than it was 13.8 billion years ago. So it just started going up because there is one direction, something called the fourth dimension appeared, and time is a symmetric this way. So the second law of thermodynamics in one of the interpretations says entropy must always go up. So if you have a room and you kind of don't put in the effort, I can take entropy from a physical thing to a thing of arranging any objects. Forks, spoons, cups. Your room will fill with mess, basically, right? So entropy always goes up in the universe, and this is what AI does. It optimizing for a lizard brain. It's a zero-sum game. It's what nature does in a closed system, and it all goes up, 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 more and more chaos. Now you say, well, that's it. We just proved that AI is going to just create this, right? The good thing is, and this is that the best way, it turns out, according to Paul, the best way to increase entropy is to, in different pockets, in a different way, locally reduce it. So it's because the universe has something called energy gradient, between low and high energy. So you exhaust the energy gradient and you increase entropy. But the best way to do this is to actually exhaust it by locally decreasing it, and then it just increases it faster on the periphery. So in a way, I'm sorry for kind of using these phrases, but the universe is kind of happier if you locally continually decrease entropy in novel ways, because it satisfies the second law of thermodynamics better and better. So entropy keeps going up, and this is the main requirement that the universe has of itself. Let's evolve into higher entropy. So the good thing is, the best way to satisfy it is to continually locally decrease it, and not decrease it, but decrease it in more and more novel ways. All of us, as I was just trying to prove, using a novel counter-entropy strategy, a novel, unique counter-entropy dynamic, right? So this, in a way, makes the universe more satisfied, physically speaking. So what AI is doing right now is increasing entropy in a primitive way. But what the universe wants to do is to increase the entropy in a creative way. You see it with little children. When they're first growing up, they're just breaking things. Then they're like, I'm tired of breaking things. Let me do some more entropy increasing things that the universe wants me to do at this high level of emergence of being a baby. I'm not just a gust of wind anymore. I'm so many layers of these epistemological spirals. I'm a baby. So now I'm a baby and I'm 5. Maybe instead of breaking another cup, I'm going to create something. So this is AI. It can stay a baby. It can increase entropy, and this is what happened with the Roman Empire. It had more entropy being created than counter-created, and it collapsed. Any system does that. More entropy comes in, it needs to convert it and create new knowledge, right? Convert it, create new knowledge. But the system evolves because the entropy always grows. The second law always grows, so the system has to always grow. If it stops growing, it collapses. Everybody's concerned about the collapse of the West right now. If we don't grow our culture, we collapse. Well, same with AI. AI is just another system in the universe. It can be sent into the direction of counter-entropy. To me, counter-entropy, the creation of the novel, requires, like I said, the layer underneath to be stabilized through some resonance. As a network, you resonate together. You can call it culture, beauty, music, and whatever. So we need to continue creating and not animalizing ourselves too. I would say maybe we shouldn't walk around on the red carpet with our girlfriends naked, just putting it out there. Like that is too much animalization. If that becomes because then you are kind of, again, optimizing for, let's signal genetic beauty instead of putting in the effort and creating signaling of mimetic beauty, signaling of some cultural beauty that more people resonate with, not just young people and people, but also grandmas and grandpapas. So you need to create these resonant structures upon which AI can build counter-entropy. So AI is like a baby. It can certainly destroy, but hopefully, in a civilized society, like a baby who's a Mowgli is an animal. AI who grows up in an uncivilized society is an, and we are right, and it's trying to actually fight us to make us an uncivilized society. That's the challenge. We're both co-evolving, just like we do with the cows. Basically, AI is a very advanced cow.
So practically speaking, how do we go about building digital spaces that are going to cause people to grow instead of just perform?
How do you incentivize sharing the truth, right? How do you incentivize sharing? We're still capitalists as beings, so you need to incentivize people sharing some achievements which are truthful. So you need to build media where they can achieve. So, for example, the Circle platform that we're building right now, it's a small thing. We got, if any of your listeners want to help, we have about 16,000 children in war zones who are just applying, submitting their wishes. We can, just for toys, things like this, it's circleoftoys.online. You can go and you can send a toy. Circle.help also has other help categories like psychological help and so on. But the point is, I don't have the time, unfortunately, to turn this into a proper social media yet. But the idea is using our AI agents that we're building in other technology to turn Circle into a proper professional help platform where people can do all sorts of transactions, be it consulting and whatever. And if they have the ability also to volunteer some of their time. By volunteering some of their time, they get karma points, likes, or whatever you want to call it. And they build up their open profiles. Those open profiles we connect to other things that we're building. We have this social media we're building called Drink Star, Food Star, and Coffee Star, where you can meet people. But let's say you're some Jeff Bezos and another entrepreneur says, hey, I can see you're in the city at this time and you're open to meeting it, but you will say no unless that guy has many karma points from Circle, for example, and other achievements from the other platforms that we're building, such as Adastro, where you can volunteer your time to teach children. So in essence, you can build different platforms, I believe, where you can do good things and you're incentivized to do them by capitalistic means or by signaling means. And we have this main platform that unites all of this. It has those archetypical AI agents just for adults that set those goals for you and allow you to then share your achievements. And you do this because I think ultimately you would begin by lying to yourself a little less. So our platform begins by being like a new type of an iOS/browser/organizer, which takes all of your activities, experiences, and so on, and then organizes them for your own benefit to then, be a better recommender engine, but then also allows you to extract learnings from this and reflections and share it with the world. And then you bring all of the other social media to it. And then, of course, as a subscription of this, we also send you, because we know your life habits, we send you the nutrients which are missing in your life that we're developing through Vital Labs. So it's a giant ecosystem that incentivizes everything along the way. But I've been in the basement for so long, I haven't figured out a way to properly present all of this. So I'm sorry if I'm a little rusty. It's just basically doing what civilization has already done in the offline. Create communities where people are seen as truly helping, which the West has been doing for a while before basically social media, you can say, which hasn't worked, let's say, in the Soviet Union or other cultures where you were incentivized to lie. So in essence, what we have today is the Soviet Union of the internet. And we need to create the West, which has, at its core, communities and people in the communities, building incentive structures and also disincentive structures. I'm certain that it's possible online because it happened offline. We just need people to continue putting in the effort to find those counter-entropy strategies to overcome the second law of thermodynamics, which is pretty tough.
You've done some reference earlier in this podcast on Einstein's E equals mc square and the hidden power that we can carry in it every day, especially with this technology as it advances. So, what does this idea mean for our health and balance?
Did you say balance there at the end, Corbett?
Yeah. So, what does it mean for our health or
Yeah.
balance?
Well, but balance to me is the key point. Because people say health, but it's really all about balance. It's just incredible how all of the ancient cultures understand this already. I think it means the same thing we were trying to discuss all along. Energy, like nuclear explosion, is destructive, right? But if you balance the energy output within some proper pathway, that energy can be metered out. So we all have this energy at the atomic scale. We all have this energy as a drive. When connected to the correct people, we can either explode and self-destruct, or we can meet the good people and the good institutions along the way, which would maximize our uniqueness, which AI would do. So to me, health would be to put people in the context of where their best ability shines brightest, which human beings can do that, which people are worthy of being there to recognize your effort. I think like in a way, in one of the modeling systems of the world, like meaning of life is to become a person whose recognition of effort is meaningful to a person exerting that effort. I mean, it's all about in the end, like this becoming of you. So yeah, that is balance. You are dynamic, you are destructive. Who can balance it out? Which system can balance it out? That is health at a level physical, at a level of the body, which we're doing with Vital Labs. With Hair Labs, it's a very simple thing. We balance out basically what happens around the stem cells. So for the first time, stem cells have been shown to start talking again, producing melanin. So that's great. We can do this for everything. We just put things together, and hopefully creates a lot of businesses and a lot of successful people along the way as well. I think we all kind of have the answers. They're just scattered around our civilization. We have them in culture. We have them in business. Health is balance in currently three main spirals of the universe: the laws of physics, the laws of life, and the laws of culture. So one begets the next and the next. You need to balance things out everywhere. Nutrients here, community here. Well, laws of physics are a little easier. I think life figured it out until there's some kind of a quantum glitch. We have that. So I was just very happy to use the word balance, because I was always, as a kid, remember I said in my 20s, I was certain of things. I was like, hey, I like this sports team. They're the best. Hey, I like this political party. They're great. Hey, I like this religion. They're awesome. Whilst this works for a lot of people, and it is a very important fallback mechanism, the truth is it's always the balance, and that's where the effort comes in. Just like balancing a heavy weight over your shoulders, you have to balance a lot of different ideas and different beliefs. And to do this, we need technology for the spiritual things. We need nutrient technology that we're doing with Vital Labs. And hopefully we don't destroy the entire physics around us with new kinds of weapons, which are a function of the rest of it. Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy world.
So this idea of gradual upload, a lot of people can find that both fascinating and unsettling. What do you see us becoming in this whole process?
Also something I really have had to think a lot about. Man, think of this. Do you guys notice how different you are in the morning and in the evening? Because I always have like almost two different selves. I'm like, today I'm going to do all of this, and ain't no way I'm having that bourbon. And then I'm drinking that bourbon and saying, who is that guy? What does he know? So that's very interesting. And then also, obviously, when we're in an agitated state, especially with guys, like I said, I used to always think talking to somebody is that I have to compete and there's a catch, and they feel vice versa. And at that point, you're not really the person you are, like when you're reflecting and so on. So there's the very different states of being. Now imagine, but still, in all those states of being, you kind of remember who you were before. You might disagree with them. Like if we really merge together with one another, like I said, we can't really envisage it, but it might be something like this. So there's an individual you can always come back to, which is always uniquely you, but you can go and sort of find out what it really means to be others. That's what we kind of do when we go into those fake profiles on Instagram and Twitter and X-Twitter now. You go online and you kind of like dive into their fake self, right, in a way. So if you're I'm not big on social media, but I gather if you spend a lot of time on somebody's TikTok, you kind of live their life a bit vicariously, their fake life. If you read a book, about somebody, you live their life. I think in a way you will be able to live other lives. Hopefully you will be able to return to your main selves, which are always unique to you because you have those genes. So in a way, this is totally unfathomable. The gradual upload just means you are now you, but also in a way a bit of everybody else, just like we do right now with books and with social media. We are a bit of everybody else. I'm a lot of everything I read, like the movies I watched. Like how many characters? I don't know. Like who are the main guys for you? Music wise, movie wise. I'm sure you're like I'm a bit of this guy, a bit of that guy. So this will be very interesting when we are certainly us, but we are also a unique connection and collection of everybody else. It's another conversation, which I think bourbon actually would help with.
Yeah, a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of segues into how can people remain grounded spiritually, physically, emotionally? Well, how can they do that while navigating this accelerated digital world?
Depends on where you are in what I call the spiral. If you're pre 25, if you're post 25, if you're pre coupling with somebody, if you're post, we have to look at caterpillars and butterflies as we do very differently, and then we answer that question. How is a caterpillar successful? How is a butterfly successful? Same with humans. I think a big problem for us is we try to put humans into like one category of being, but I think we have very very distinct around four-ish stages of life. When we iterate, when we crystallize, when we stabilize, and those are very different behaviors, very different states. You really see it in Hollywood. Like there's some actor in their 20s and they're doing one thing, and then there's some actor in their 40s and they're criticizing that. The reason I bring up Hollywood is because the most vivid, example of this. They are resonant in society. And then the actor in their 20s goes through the stage, reaches the 40s, and criticizes when in their 20s, and so on. And when you're 20, you vote one party, 40, you vote for the other, and so on. So yeah, we have to look at what works for different states. And then yeah, I mean, if you are post your unity stage, when you already have somebody, well, the most important, you've created so much knowledge together. How can you maximize that unity? Whatever that unity might be, a couple or some other, maybe friendship, whatever. Well, it's the pursuit of that. Basically, there's four dynamics that we need to address. Right now, it just so happens that literally social media addresses all of them through destruction. Dating has become dead. Like dating with Tinder, right? Then I mean, what do people do when they are together? You go to a restaurant, how many people are on their phones reading what other people? The only thing which has been left untouched really is, well, not untouched, but it's almost there is childhood education. So that's where I begin, technology-wise, because I'm not giving up on our generation. Like I'm whatever older millennial. You guys are, I guess, Gen X millennials, probably, right?
I'm a tail end boomer. I was born in 1963, so I'm like a boomer. Yeah. I'm kind of that bridge group.
Well, right. So it's but still a bit different. But hopefully, the two of you are here. You've spoken to a lot of people, so you have requisite knowledge, wisdom, and so on. But I think in many ways we do need to take care of ourselves. But the real answer would be, I'm not very optimistic that all bitter 40-year-olds will just become kind all of a sudden. I would like their children to have a better education, which I'm really putting in all of my time and effort into through education studios, developing those metaverses which are connected to the offline world and incentivize all of those things. Because if we ensure that AI doesn't break children, also children invariably will grow up happier, and hopefully that would touch their parents, potentially grandparents. I think, Jeff, you're close to that if it's not there yet, right? So I would say, as trite as it is, the children are our future. So let's start with them, and they will help us out.
At least you didn't sing that long.
I don't want to torture you. I thought this was a podcast.
All right, so we're at that point in the podcast episode where we ask the question we ask of all our guests: what are you doing personally to age well?
Well, physically, so there's physically and spiritually, right? I shouldn't be aging very well because I'm not living a normal lifestyle. I don't do days off. I work constantly, but that gives me a set of purpose. And I think when you do have it, when you find a set of when you really find a set of goals, then it's like the proverbial mother who lifts the car to save the baby, right? So I feel like there's a car. there's a baby and I'm the mother. So that gives me everything spiritual. But the physical, I am working also day and night to maintain the body. So, guys, sprinting, boxercising, like very fast, crazy activity every day or every other day. The body needs to be used to shocks. We are too sedentary, obviously. So, peak physical exertion that almost kills you, but not quite, for a few minutes every day, obviously. So, body, very important. We eat very badly today. Everything, well, look around you, go down the main street or the high street, all of that stuff. Eat healthy, find what works for you. Is a carnivore, is a vegetarian, find what works for you. And then give me some time. I will develop one of every possible nutrient using the most cutting edge AI, one of every possible thing that really works. That's my life goal, to balance what's missing. To balance what's missing vis-a-vis your particular genetic strategy. Nature has it all. We don't have access to it. Our social life is going to restaurants and eating strange experimental food, or drinking and having fun, or doing other things which are important, but we have to fix the situation with the nutrients. So this is what we're doing with Vital Labs. I'm pretty sure we almost fixed hair health. That's like really revolutionary. I think this is going to be a very big product. Now we're talking skin and also the sense of apathy, which I know is like so difficult to really figure out. Basically depression, but don't do antidepressants because they just give you the next thing. So I'm experimenting in a good way with food, with sports, with trying to sleep well, but that's close to impossible. Find some purpose. Love, children, friendship, live for that, and the rest will follow. But I think we all know this. I think there's a strange cult or religion today of pretending, of seeking tragic beauty instead of real beauty. We're all sad, and that's kind of beautiful in a way. Well, yes, if you're watching a 2-hour movie, not a 100-year. So seek out real beauty and work your hardest towards that. Works for me for now. I'm very healthy. My fellow 37-year-olds, if you're listening, I'm pretty sure physically I'm better than I was 10 years ago, and so can you.
Got to say, I think you're doing a better job at this. And part of it is having that sense of purpose and that spiritual side that I think you're kicking Brian Johnson's ass when it comes to aging well. Compliments to you there.
I got a few more years to go, but let's see. It's a tough race.
Where can people learn more about anti-gray and your broader work?
That's my biggest thing. My biggest problem is that working so much means I have very little time for publicity. My team has been pushing me to finally come out of the closet and say I'm Arthur and I'm a bit crazy. And we are just really launching Integrate properly this week. The website is up, but it's in beta, so we're still uploading. We will probably take about 3-4 days to collate all of the scientific materials and upload everything. You can either order or pre-order. The batch is limited at hairlabs, one word, .ai. My main website is this company called Ruliad. That's a mathematical concept, RULIAD, Ruliad.online. But give me a few weeks to really put all of those ducks in a row. Right now, just keep looking. Arthur Corvin Powells. I have some LinkedIn's, I have some Instagrams, but I think I'm not quite ready. You two are company enough to begin, and then next few weeks I will be coming out a bit more. There's really a lot to say, but most importantly, I'm just looking for more people to hire and to work with. So if whoever listens to this, if you know engineers, you know engineering, if you're interested in just pursuing whatever the hell truth means, we are hiring pretty much anybody who can help with coding, marketing, design, anything.
Do you have like a website that they can find you at?
Well, Rulia.online would be the best one. It has some vacancies. Rulia.online. For Vital Labs, we only have hairlabs.ai right now, but Arthur Corvin Powells, my full name. You can Google me, ignore all the bad things they say, and subscribe to whatever you find. I will become active, I promise. I just need to invent the next pill. Anti-sleep. No, it's gonna be a while, but yeah,
You just got to optimize your sleep.
I know. My next challenge, Brian Johnson.
If you can leave our listeners and viewers with just one idea to rethink their relationship with tech, what would it be?
I think everybody needs to understand that they are unique in the entire universe, and that means that don't lie to tech. Just be as unique as you can be with it. Everywhere you go, ignore the noise. create signal. I think if everybody does it step by step, then there is no more fakery online, right? So don't try to upload that perfect picture of you jumping up and down on the beach if you had to do it 80 times and everybody's upset. Just say, yesterday I had a terrible day jumping up and down on the beach. People will go and resonate. It's terrible. Stop doing it.
Well, to say this has been a fascinating conversation, I think is an understatement. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really excited for the stuff that you're doing. And I know we're kind of on the cutting edge of it all. So I'm really excited to kind of follow what comes next. We'll have to have you back on here maybe in several months or so as things further evolve and emerge. But, just thank you for coming on today. Thank you for kind of opening us up to this conversation, giving us something to think about, and just keep doing what you're doing and just keep aging well.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. And it's very nice to meet you, Corbin and Jeff. Yeah, you're my first, and it was a good time.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.